Hello and welcome to week 4, the final week of the Minimalist Kitchen course. I'm Melissa Coleman. This is a live Q&A. And we're gonna do this like we always do. We're gonna start the first half with a recap and then the last half for asking questions. And I want you to bring your super detailed, only works for your kitchen, probably works for a lot of people kitchen kind of questions. This is the space for that. As is customary, I talk about the weather awkwardly. This week in Minneapolis, it has been, as they call it in the news, dangerously cold. So my daughter has not been in school all week. Fun little story, I usually practice what I'm going to say on the way home after dropping her off at preschool. So you're getting a live, uncut version because there was no school and no practicing on the way home this week. So week 4, the final week, we are putting it all back together. We are making something beautiful out of the mess. Your kitchen might be feeling a bit like a mess after everything we've done, but this is the week where we're putting it all back together again. Everything left in your kitchen has been marked keep. It's in the keep category. You've discarded, you've donated, you've put that special 3-month box away, and we are just going to deal with the keep stuff this week. In this week, we talked about why recipes are so important, and you might be thinking, Melissa, why aren't you just focusing on organization? Why are you talking about recipes too? But our recipes populate our kitchen, from the ingredients to the tools. And when you don't have any parameters on your recipes, you just buy more tools and you buy more ingredients because you're trusting the recipe to tell you what to do. So I recommend giving yourself a cookbook, a air quotes cookbook. It's a collection of recipes you make often. And that's what my book is. It's the recipes we make often. It's what's on the table. Tonight we had, what did we have? We had the chicken pesto focaccia sandwiches. They were really good, but I actually forgot that we didn't have sun-dried tomatoes at the store. My system failed me for a second. I can tell you more about what happened there. I'll just tell you now because I'll forget. I didn't write it down on the list. One of my big rules is always write it down on the list, an ingredient that is about to be out or is already out. Write it down on the list. And I talk more about list making in the book. I kind of send you off in the book. So we're going to focus. I'm going to keep myself focused. I have a lot of things I want to tell you, but I'm going to keep myself focused. Here, pay attention to your recipes. Keep a cookbook. When you keep a cookbook, you're using those techniques over and over again, and you become a really efficient cook, which is really nice. I know a lot of people wrote, how can you give me recipes that make me a quicker, faster, efficient cook? And the only real way to do that is to make things over and over again, to know what you're doing. And then you're grabbing for the same things in your kitchen. You're grabbing for an ingredient that you know performs well. And it's just going to be more seamless. When you're always making new recipes, it's just always going to feel kind of clunky. It's like driving to a place for the very first time. It feels like it takes forever. And then on the way home, it goes so fast. And the going so fast part is making the same or similar recipes or recipes with similar techniques over and over again. This will also help you with decision fatigue. Just add some hearts right now. If you have decision fatigue like me, I don't do well at making a lot of decisions all day long. And when it comes time to making a meal plan for the week, I have major decision fatigue. So I look at my particular cookbook and I flip through it, and that's how I meal plan for the week. I'm not pulling things out of thin air or even going on Pinterest. That's like major, that's like walking into Bed Bath & Beyond. It's like, oh my gosh, there's every option here. So I pare down my options, I give myself parameters, and mine looks like my cookbook, and I recommend that you create your own cookbook too. So as you're putting your kitchen back together this week, I have 3 organizing guidelines. These guidelines will work in your kitchen, they'll work in your closet, in your study, they'll work all over your house. But we're talking about the kitchen, but this works anywhere. So those 3 guidelines are increase visibility, compartmentalize, and give everything a home. And these overlap a whole lot. You're kind of doing each of these as you do one of these. So when you increase visibility, I want to say invisibility. When you increase visibility, everything is in plain sight. If you open, I'm just going to start opening things. If you open your cabinet, it's not super tidy, but you can see everything at once. I'm not digging back to find stuff. There's not layers and layers and layers of stuff. I can see it all, I can grab it, and I can retrieve it. And when you can see it and grab it and retrieve it, then you can also more easily put it back, because half of cooking in the kitchen is cleaning up the kitchen. This framework isn't going to solve the cleaning problem or the fact that you have to clean, but it does make cleaning go a little bit more smoothly. And when you increase visibility, then everyone in your home can see things. A mental inventory is good for one person. And that's how I used to do things for a while. I had everything in my head, and I'd get frustrated when everyone else in my home didn't know what was in my head. Like, how did they not know? But a visible system, like I am recommending that you create, is good for everyone. Everyone can see it, they can retrieve it, and they can put it back. As you're organizing, think about if you were organizing your kitchen for a guest. Could they come in your home? Could they find the flour? If they can they put back the flour once they're done using it? And if they can, then you have a really intuitive system. I should say too, all of these guidelines are really, really simple guidelines. Nothing that we've done in this course is rocket science. It's just simple. It's putting a lot of simple things together to make a really big impact. As you're choosing containers, so when you're increasing visibility, you want everything in plain sight. You also want to be able to see your ingredients. A box of crackers, you can't see through the box of crackers. You don't know. Oh, by the way, Kimberly's on the other side of this. Add your questions as we go. Oh, hi Rachel, I see you. That's like way late, sorry. So if you have a box of crackers, you can't see what's in the box of crackers. You don't know if there's any left. You don't know if they're crispy or if they're stale. But when you can see your ingredient, you know how much you have left. And with these containers, these are the OXO Pop containers that we've had for years in our kitchen and we love. You know that the ingredient is still fresh. So there's a couple things to think about as you choose the containers that work best for your kitchen. I'm going to just show you this pop really fast. It's really awesome. One thing I like to think about is I'm like holding something. I'm in the middle of cooking a recipe. I've got something in one hand. I'm grabbing an ingredient. Can I also open that ingredient with one hand and keep doing what I'm doing and not let the thing behind me boil over? Because that's practically what's going on in your kitchen. Will these containers tip over? We've had containers that tip and then you can see through them, but they're tipping over, not these OXO Pop containers. Do they fit together? Like, could you make a puzzle piece out of them, especially if you have tighter spaces? Do they pour? Or if they do pour, does the lip stay open? We've had ones that just, I've bought every container out there, and these are my favorite containers. They also are sponsoring this course, but I reached out to them. I love OXO. When you pour, does the container stay open? It actually does, and then when you close it, you can hear the click. You know it's keeping it fresh. Other things to think about, can you fit your hand inside? There's a lot of containers with really narrow openings, and maybe you could get your hand in, but can you get your hand back out? That's important. There's a lot of things to think about, and I talked more about this on the blog. So I'm going to sound repetitive. Navigate this process slowly. Look for containers that work. Buy a couple at a time, see how they're working in your kitchen, and then add more. I also added a list in the Facebook group of the containers I have and how much I can fit, how much of the ingredient I can fit in each container. And I mentioned this earlier, but the book, the Minimalist Kitchen book, why don't I even, I'm so not prepared tonight. The polar vortex does more to the weather, to stuff to your brain. But in the book, chapter 1, which we've talked about, and it's guided you through this process, it's going to continue you through this process. And I talk about labeling, how important that is. And you can see on this container, this is the quinoa. I promise myself I'll remember things, and my memory is quite faulty. So I have things like it takes 15 minutes to cook this, and it's a 1-to-2 ratio of ingredient to water. So give yourself tools and tips for remembering things, because if you're like me, you probably won't remember. All right, so number 1 was increase visibility, and number 2 is compartmentalize. This might seem counterintuitive. When you divide a space, you are maximizing its storage capabilities, which is kind of why I practice minimalism. It lets me do more. And so the idea of minimalism isn't just to strip away to let you do less. It lets you do more of the things that you want to be able to do. So when you open a drawer and it's not compartmentalized, it's visual chaos. It's hard to find what you need. But when you compartmentalize a drawer, when you give everything a tidy little cozy home, it's really easy to find what you're looking for. And you'll hear me repeat this over and over again. We're talking about find and retrieval and then put it back. Those are really important tasks that we have to do in the kitchen. Imagine if your kitchen, or just imagine a home, like a big square home, there are no walls, no nothing. After living there for a while, you would erect some walls. You would begin to divide the cooking space from the living space. That's compartmentalizing, and we're naturally compartmentalizing, but continue to compartmentalize all of your cabinets and drawers. I'm going to take you through in a second just to show you. I showed you guys in the post, but I'm going to take you through the live kitchen. You can see my crumbs if you're into that. As you're organizing your space, I mentioned this a little bit ago, just think that you have something else in your hand while you're trying to find something or dig something out. So if I have this in my hand and I'm trying to get my baking sheet, but it's under a lot of things, I'm gonna have to put this thing down. So try to make everything as user-friendly as possible. I'm gonna show you that in a second, and you can do that by compartmentalizing, so you're not digging. You need 2 hands to dig. Finally, give everything a home. It's really easy to find things when they have a home, and it's really hard to find things when they don't have a home. I'm trying to teach my 5-year-old this right now, as we spend a quarter of our day looking for one shoe that she lost. And we can laugh about it with the 5-year-old, but we do the same thing. When we don't put things back where they belong, or when we don't give it a home in the first place, then we spend a lot of our lives trying to retrieve this item when we could just give it a home. So give everything a home so that you never have to go on that mad dash hunt to find the thing, tearing apart the house in the process. And then as something new comes in your home, you need to decide, do you want to give it a home, or should it get out of your home, or maybe never come into the home? I'm going to tell you something kind of goofy. My husband's the shopper in the house. I'm like, you can probably see, I'm the control freak, the one that likes things really tidy and organized, so I have enough mental bandwidth for the big stuff, but he likes to shop. And I told him a couple months ago, I was like, Kev, imagine me standing at the back door, and I'm Dikembe Mutombo. He's a basketball player, a very tall basketball player. I'm really short, I'm 5 foot. But I said, imagine me standing at the back door swatting things away. He says in the commercial, not in my house. So now he imagines this big, tall basketball player swatting things away. That's me, not in my house, not in my house. It makes the decision easier. Do you have a home for it? Can you make a home for it? If you don't have space for it, are you willing to get rid of something else? That works in your closet. That also works in the space of your pantry, because as we've talked about throughout this course, your space has a capacity. Okay, now let's get to the practical, open the drawers and the good stuff. I'm going to show you how an ingredient goes through the system. I talk about this in the book, and I didn't talk about this in the written course. It's in the book, and I'm going to show you momentarily. So I'm going to get my bag of chips. I saved a bag of chips. Yeah, you can, I think you can grab it. We're going rogue right now. So I'm going to open up the pantry. Feel free to ask questions if you have questions about particular parts of the pantry. So this is the beauty of having a visual inventory. I can see that this is low. And so before I go to the grocery store, I'm going to look over my pantry. Hopefully I've already written it down. If not, I can take a quick visual inventory, and I see that I need to refill this. And so I get it at the store. I know this is kind of crazy, but you'll get to know your stuff. I know that I can fit two of these 11-ounce bags in this container. So I typically buy 2 bags to fill this up if it's all the way empty. Now, today I'm gonna do something I don't normally do. I would wait until this is completely empty so that we're not, so that we don't have like a layer of really old chips at the bottom. And then I have an area for overflow, which you're probably like, oh lady, where are you storing this if you're not gonna put this in right now? I'm gonna put this in right now and show you. So it's out, I go to the store, oh, it's completely empty. I'm gonna refill it as soon as I get home. This is crazy. Even my 5-year-old comes home and she takes her things from the grocery store and puts them in the spots that they go to and gets rid of the boxes. It's a wonderful little system that everyone in the house is kind of adapted to because it works. It's a rewarding system, so when you're rewarded, you continue to do things. All right, you guys have seen this before. So put it back in. You can hear this pop. It's sealed. It keeps it all in place. And then I'm going to put it back in the pantry. Now you can see I have some hideaway spaces for overflow. This area down here, it looks like a disaster, and it kind of is, but this is my overflow where not everything fits up here. When something runs out, before I add it to my list, I'm gonna shop my overflow section before shopping the grocery store. And everything in this bank of our cabinets is up here. So it's organized, it's a little bit chaotic. This is the part of the system where I'm in charge of, and in week 2 we talked about how you are the boss. So this is the part of being a boss that you kind of have to take care of. I also, because I've pared down and don't keep a lot of extra stuff, I have extra space in the backs that I can store a little bit of overflow. And I don't do that often, and once we eat through this, the overflow will disappear. So we've developed a system where we're using all of our ingredients, and because we've pared down, we're actually eating through all of this stuff. Like I rarely, this is kind of crazy, but I rarely throw out food with this method, and I don't have to think about expiration dates either because we're eating through the food that we buy. Again, it sounds really simple, but it's how wonderful this system is. I'll take you guys through here. This is a part that I talk about in chapter 1 of the book, is grouping like items. So I had pared down my pantry, and then I had all these random things like sprinkles that my daughter loves. And so I had all these random bits in the pantry, and it looked messy, and mess begets mess. So then I started compartmentalizing even further. And this is what I mean by compartmentalize, like just keep going, keep dividing spaces. So you can see my stash of, this is what I like to eat after lunch. I cut them in half if you wanted to know, and I have one after lunch. And then over here we have different chocolates. This is leftover from Christmas, probably needs to go, and then chocolates that I bake with. And if you want to look down here, this is another way to compartmentalize your overflow. So the overflow looked really messy over there, and that one's kind of hard to contain because of some of the ingredients, but this one's really easy. So we have extra coconut chips and raisins and nuts. I buy my nuts in bulk. One thing to think about when you're buying in bulk is it's more affordable to buy in bulk, but it's not affordable if you're not actually able to consume the entire ingredient. So think about, can I consume this before it goes bad? And if not, then it's not a savings. Buy it in a smaller quantity. And then you can see too, like it goes from organized to overflow down here. And that's how I've organized all 3 of these banks. And then this is my daughter's snacks. And this is one area where she can come and feed herself, and it's at a level where she can reach and she can put the item back. So she's starting to be a part of this system. She's a member of the family, and she's contributing in this way, and she can feed herself when she needs to. And we kind of have rules around that, and she knows how to feed herself. And then the spices. This is everybody's favorite. I keep mine in a cabinet so I can see it all at a quick glance. You can see I have overflow right here. I accidentally bought too much curry powder, but I've actually gotten pretty good at buying the exact amount. And there's ways to refill these actual containers at the store, which I'll be posting more about soon. You can see down here too, I've got a pared down set of pots and pans. And then I've hung using a 3M hook my 2 lids that I don't use that often, so they're in the back. If I used one more often than other, then I would put it up here to where it was closer for me to reach. So think about your habits and design your kitchen around your habits. And so here's what I'm talking about, compartmentalizing big spaces and pretending as if you're holding something. So I'm holding something right here, and I can also grab a cutting board, which is usually what's happening. I'm trying to do too much at once because I want to get dinner on the table fast. So design your kitchen again around your habits. And then you can see this is a really deep space. Like if I crawl back there, I'm going to knock my head. I've got what is that, a slow cooker? I don't use that often. And a waffle iron. Both of those I don't use often, but I use them, so I keep them. And I put the things that I use least in the back and then the most in the front. I have really easy access to this. I'm not going to knock my head or my hands. And then this is, well, I'll show you guys this too. I've used for this cabinet a bunch of different bamboo dividers. So it looks like a custom cabinet, and these are just inexpensive bamboo dividers. I think this one's from Target, and this one is, I think this one's from IKEA, but these are all 3 separate pieces. And I just kind of guessed what fits, and I had to try out a bunch of things and return things. But this is the idea of compartmentalizing and giving everything a home. And a lot of people asked, what do you do with your produce, your counter produce? I have this little tray that I got a while ago that I put into a counter. So I made space into, sorry, not a counter, a cabinet, a drawer, and I keep my produce counter produce not on the counter in a drawer. Let's see. I want to show you guys too, I talked about throughout the course, we still have our garland up. I talked about having a hobby, and it's okay to have a hobby, and it's okay to keep things around your hobby. The point of creating a minimalist kitchen is not to strip away joy. So baking is one of my hobbies, and I have quite a few baking, I think I showed this in the post, but I have quite a few baking gadgets or pans, and I use all of these. I do pay close attention to this because if I notice myself, which there was a while I wasn't baking as much, I would consider either getting rid of it or pulling it out of the kitchen, like the 3-month rule, seeing if I used it, giving myself maybe instead of 3 months, 6 months. Am I going to go use that now that it's out of the kitchen? If not, then I probably don't need to keep that thing, and I'm going to donate it. Okay, I think those are all the big ones. I could show you too. Some people asked about big deep drawers. This is kind of strange. A lot of people don't do this, but we keep our plates and cups in big drawers. And it happens to be right across from the dishwasher, so it's really easy. It motivates me to actually do the dishes and clean them and put them away.
I'm not making people sick.
All right. Sorry, that was a live tour. We are going to put this back on our very low-tech stand and then answer any questions that you guys have, any specific questions. And the Facebook group and the blog post will continue to stay up. So as you get to this stuff in your kitchen, because it's going to probably take you longer than 4 weeks to complete the course or to rebuild your kitchen, then keep asking those questions. I'll be there. I'll be in the group and, of course, on the blog. But
you want a couple of questions?
Yeah.
Okay. One was somebody had issues with how to categorize some things. Like, for example, oats. Does she store them with grains or with cereals? Or liquid sweeteners. Do they have them with their sugars or with something else? So do you have any recommendations on how to categorize?
So some of it, this is going back to prior weeks, is noticing your habits. I notice my habits are, if I'm baking, then I'm going to keep all my baking stuff together. I'm going to keep the sugars, whether they're liquid or not, I'm going to keep them all together. Also, think about your habits, and then think about where they are at the store. At the grocery store. The grocery store is a really good model for categorization. Like, they've spent a lot of time categorizing things so that you can walk into that store and find it. So mimic what's going on at the grocery store. You're already looking for those ingredients in the same way. You've got a habit to finding those ingredients, so you can categorize them in the same way that the store is categorizing them. And then making adjustments. Again, notice first. If you're always like, we have a light switch that we always touch the wall with the light switch isn't on. Like, the light switch should be on a different wall. We can't change that, but you can change the things in your pantry.
And somebody wants to know where you store your apron.
My apron, I have a closet back behind us that is our...
Chris doesn't.
It's our closet for everything, our mudroom closet, and I have a little hook back there. So I've even given it a home. It's got a hook. It's on a home. And if you were to come over, I do have an extra one for you, and I have an extra knife too.
Come cook.
I didn't strip my kitchen completely down to get rid of the good stuff.
Julie, I think, referring to the photo of in your refrigerator, where you're in the containers, wondering how long the spinach lasts in the container.
Yeah, I'll pull that out. So these are the OXO, what are they called? Green Saver containers. And these are wonderful because it's a container. You can see it, and it also compartmentalizes in your fridge, because a fridge doesn't have great compartmentalization. So you kind of have to add extra storage dividers, and this is a great one. Okay, the beauty of this thing, we've been using these, I don't know, for at least over a year. And they have these little carbon inserts, and the carbon will absorb the gases that fresh produce gives off and makes everything deteriorate more quickly. So I change these out every 3 months, and it has a little notch on there so that you know when you need to change it out, because again, your memory never will serve you as well as it promises. And in here I've got arugula. I just put this in today. Gosh, I wish this was a couple days. This will last. This was still probably good on Sunday if there's any left. We're going to eat through this faster than that. But the beauty of this container is that, okay, let's see if I can show you. All the moisture is hitting on the outside of the container, and then it's got this basin, so the wet stuff isn't sitting on the fragile lettuce leaf and deteriorating it. This is a wonderful thing. We use it for our berries. We use it exclusively for any berries we buy and any greens lettuce we buy. You can see the moisture that develops on here, and I'll wipe this down every so often too. They're lovely containers.
I know nobody wants to discuss this, but have you ever had bugs in your containers?
I've never had bugs in my containers. Never. I get these things, like, I buy the ingredient, I get them from the store to home into the container right away. And so the only way I would have bugs is if they were in the store. There's really no way for them to get in.
Krista asks, is it important not to store spices and cooking oils above the oven because of the heat?
The heat. It depends on your kitchen, what the ventilation is like. If you're noticing it's getting hot right there, then yeah, you don't want to expose your oils to heat. So every kitchen is different. I have my alcohols up there. Maybe they're less potent. I don't know.
That's it. I think that's all of our questions.
All right. I think that's it. Again, I'm going to be on the blog. Those posts are going to stay up. We will keep this this Facebook group alive and well and sharing information. It's really cool to see you guys sharing. Yes, speaking of sharing, if you are willing and open to share your before and afters, it's always inspiring to see. And at the start of this whole thing, I said, would you please take a before so that you have a before to your after, and share them in the group. I think that's it. For me, it's kind of bittersweet. Thank you guys for being here and joining in this process. You should be proud of yourself. You're advocating for a need, and that's a powerful thing. All right, bye.
Finger. We're done, right?
Is it still? That's why.